Hi folks, my name is Rohini Goyal. I'm a program manager in the identity division at Microsoft. I focus on core and default account protection capabilities along with password security.
Hi, my name is Caroline Templeton. I'm also a program manager in the identity division. My focus is in privileged identity management.
Today, we are going to talk about a set of winning strategies that we have developed from our understanding of how customers use our technology and manage their environments. We've previously documented these strategies in a document called 5 Steps to Securing Your Identity Infrastructure. The document outlines 5 strategies: strengthen your credentials, reduce your attack surface, automate threat response, utilize cloud intelligence, and empower end users. Throughout the course of this presentation, Caroline and I are going to show you how you can use security and governance capabilities to achieve these strategies. But before we dive in, we want to make sure you have a strong foundation to implement the security and governance capabilities consistently. For that, I'm going to hand it off to Caroline.
Thanks, Rohini. Before we get into these winning strategies, let's talk about how to lay a strong identity foundation in the cloud. Azure AD is the largest cloud identity provider in the world, with over 200,000 organizations, 425 million active users, and over 30 billion daily authentication requests. We have some great technology that proactively helps you detect and remediate threats. But for all this technology to work and for identity to be the control plane, we need to do a few things first. First, we need to get your users into the control plane. We've been heavily investing to make this easier for you. You can bring your users from on-prem via Azure AD Connect Cloud Sync, which just became generally available a few weeks ago. Azure AD Connect Cloud Sync is especially useful if you have disconnected AD forests that arise from a merger and acquisition or from remote office location scenarios. You can also bring in your users from HR apps such as Workday and SuccessFactors via provisioning connectors. And then along with all your users, you should also connect all your apps to Azure AD to really take advantage of the richness that we provide. These could be apps in the cloud, apps that can be provisioned via the SCIM standard, or other legacy on-prem apps via Azure AD App Proxy. Okay, so now that you've brought in all your users into Azure AD and connected all your apps, I'm going to hand it back to Rohini to talk about why it's important to strengthen your credentials and how you can do it.
Thanks, Caroline. We live in a world where passwords are no longer good enough. Attacks are on the rise, and majority of the attacks are related to passwords. Last year, there was a 230% increase in the number of password spray attacks. And in August alone, the Microsoft Identity Security System found over 9 million high-risk sign-ins and 2 million compromised accounts. This is why it is important to verify that users are who they say they are with strong authentication. Strong authentication can prevent 99.9% of the identity attacks. As you develop your strategy for strengthening your credentials, you should deploy the most secure, usable, and cost-effective methods for your organization and your users. Passwords, especially the common ones like password 123, are horrible. Telephony-based methods like SMS and voice can provide an additional layer of verification, but they have a dependency on telecom providers, end users need connectivity, and it may cost the end user. The Microsoft Authenticator app provides a better experience where the users can either simply approve a notification or enter a one-time passcode to verify their identity. While augmenting the passwords can strengthen your credentials, the best way to go is to eliminate passwords in your environment. This year at Ignite, we've made an exciting announcement that our passwordless capabilities are now generally available. This includes passwordless phone sign-in and FIDO2 security keys. The generally available experience will include authentication method management per user, improved reporting and insights, updated sign-in and audit logging, as well as APIs for policies and methods. Additionally, to help ensure our customers are secure from day one, Microsoft is enabling security defaults by default for all new tenants created. Security defaults is a culmination of our identity security best practices. It ensures that all customers are protected using MFA and from legacy authentication. But enough of me talking. Now let's show you a real-world example and walk you through some demos. Let's take the example of Woodgrove Bank. Nithika is on the IT team at Woodgrove Bank and is leading Woodgrove's journey to eliminate passwords. Nithika first wants to deploy phone sign-in. She wants to do a phased rollout and plans to start the rollout with the more tech-savvy folks, like the tenant admins, Azure admins, and application admins. Nithika also wants to block legacy authentication, or any client that does not support strong authentication. Let's walk through how she'll tackle these. Here, Nithika is in the Security Experience in Azure AD, which is the one-stop shop for all identity security capabilities. To roll out passwordless sign-in, she will go to the Authentication Method Policy Experience. Here, she wants to enable Microsoft Authenticator passwordless sign-in method. Nithika will target the passwordless experience to the pilot group of administrators. And after saving this configuration, the pilot group will be able to use passwordless phone sign-in. Next, she wants to make sure there are no backdoors that will allow the pilot users to log in using legacy authentication. So Nithika goes back in the security experience. Within conditional access, she'll create a new policy to block legacy auth. She will start by applying the policy to the pilot group. And again, Nithika wants to ensure there are no backdoors irrespective of the app, so she will also apply the policy to all cloud apps. Under conditions, she will go to the client apps condition to select legacy clients. Finally, she will go to controls and select the block control. Now that Nithika has configured passwordless sign-in and block legacy auth, let's see what the experience looks like for Sarah, who is part of the pilot group. Sarah is an administrator at Woodgrove, who is part of the passwordless pilot group. It is Monday morning, and Sarah is trying to access her applications. As usual, she is prompted for a username and password. Next, she gets a prompt that says she is required to provide additional information to keep her account secure. She is taken to the registration experience, which walks her through a step-by-step guide on how to download and set up the Microsoft Authenticator app. She scans the QR code, and next she verifies that she is able to receive and approve notifications. And that's it, she's done. She can access her applications just like she used to, except now with the additional layer of security. Remember that Nithika had blocked legacy authentication to ensure there are no backdoors for strong authentication. Sarah prefers to use an older mail client that does not support modern authentication. She tries to set up her account on this mail client. Thanks to the block legacy auth policy, she receives an error when using this legacy client, so Sarah switches over to the Outlook client. So here are the winning strategies for strengthening your credentials. Enable MFA for all of your admins if you haven't already. Deploy strong auth for all of your users. Start your passwordless journey, and block legacy authentication. With that, I'll hand it back to Caroline to share how to reduce your attack surface with Azure AD.
Great, thanks Rohini. In Azure AD, we help you reduce your attack surface through multiple technologies. And like you just saw, conditional access is one way which helps you by putting checks in place like location and device requirements when users are accessing applications. But another risk vector is your users with privileged roles. These are the folks that have lots of permissions, and if they get compromised, can cause extensive damage to your environment. Over time, your admins may amass even more permissions that can add to the risk posture of your organization. What you really want is not to have standing admin access. Instead, your admins should have just enough access and just in time for when it's needed. You can do this today through privileged identity management. This helps reduce your user's risk profile, so even if a privileged user does get phished or attacked, your overall risk is vastly reduced. And then to add an extra level of security on these privileged users, we are combining the powers of privileged identity management and conditional access. PIM will enable you to apply adaptive auth controls before your just-in-time elevation through an integration with conditional access. You could configure location checks or block risky users before an elevation. To do this, we've added authentication context. This will allow you to enforce even more granular conditional access policies for the most sensitive assets. We'll soon be public previewing support not only for PIM, but also for Microsoft Cloud App Security and label sites and SharePoints. And of course, this isn't just for Microsoft apps. Authentication context can be used by SaaS and a line of business apps that use Azure AD. And then if you want to further reduce your attack surface, you want to use some of our advanced governance solutions, like entitlement management. Entitlement management provides lifecycle management for your employees, as well as your non-employees, like business partners or vendors. You can create predefined packages of resources that include groups, apps, and SharePoint sites. You can then define policies on who can request access, for how long, set up approval workflows, and we even have a new preview feature that can add custom questions users need to answer when they're requesting an access package. And then finally, users' access is always going to be time-bound and can be reviewed via Azure AD Access Reviews. Okay, so now let's dive into a demo. Woodgrove Bank has pivoted to hybrid work with several employees working from home. Woodgrove Bank IT, though, is worried about the increase in pervasive attacks, and it wants to harden security and governance controls to reduce that attack surface. In the next few minutes, we're going to show you how Woodgrove Bank is going to do 3 things. First off, Woodgrove IT's admin, Nitika, is going to enable a conditional access policy to protect Woodgrove's sensitive applications. She's going to start with ServiceNow, and since more users are accessing these resources from home, she wants to ensure that these users are using compliant managed devices to do so. But Nitika also understands that not all of her users are going to be able to use a managed device. So for those users, she needs to be able to manage an exception policy. We're going to show you how she's going to do that with our entitlement management service. And finally, we'll show you how she can apply additional security controls to her applications by protecting privileged roles like application administrator. This provides permissions to make changes on applications like ServiceNow. Nitika will assign Sarah as eligible to the application admin role, scoped down specifically to the ServiceNow application. And then as a further step to help protect Sarah's account if it's compromised, she'll require that anyone activating their application admin role also perform a multi-factor authentication check if they are a medium risk user. Okay, so first Nitika navigates to the conditional access experience in the Azure portal, where she starts creating a conditional access policy. Just as she earlier rolled out phone sign-in to a small group of users, she similarly scopes this policy to the ServiceNow administrators. And then she's going to add an exception group for the users that need to be excluded from the policy. She then selects the ServiceNow application. And finally, in the control section, she will require devices to be compliant when granting users access. Now, Nitika is worried that the exception group that she just created for her conditional access policy may balloon over time, so she wants a systematic way to manage the lifecycle of this group. For this, she's going to use entitlement management. She navigates the identity governance experience in the Azure portal and clicks to add a new access package. She gives that access package a name, a description, and adds it to a catalog of policies that are used to manage conditional access exceptions. Next, she wants to add the exception group, so she searches and adds it. She then specifies the users that can request access to this package. This is going to be all users, including guests. She'll then decide on the approval workflow for new requests. She'll specify who the approver is. In this case, it'll be Nitika herself, but it could be the user's manager. You also have the option to pick an alternative approver if the approver doesn't take action, like when they're on vacation. Next, we look at a new feature we have that lets you add custom questions. Nitika is going to make people requesting access for this exception policy answer whether they've taken the required training and what country they're located in. Finally, she makes some lifecycle decisions. She's going to set the assignment to expire after 90 days and require access reviews to happen monthly. That way, those users in this exception group have to attest every month that they still need this exception, which ensures that this group doesn't just keep ballooning over time. Finally, her access package is created. There are multiple ways end users can get access to this access package. Nitika is going to send this link, though, to the folks in her organization who need an exception to this policy. Okay, so now let's take a look at Sarah's experience. As a reminder, Sarah is the ServiceNow admin who does not have a managed device and needs an exception. Sarah is going to use that link that Nitika sent her, and she's going to be directed to a user-friendly portal called My Access. She's going to see her access package, read all the content, confirm that this is what she needs. She'll then answer the questions and provide a justification. After she submits it, Nitika is going to get a notification. From there, she'll be directed to My Access to view her pending approvals. In this case, she doesn't know who Sarah is, so she's going to click into the details and view the answers and justifications Sarah provided. After that, she'll decide whether to approve her request. To recap, Nitika has tackled the first two parts by enabling a CA policy for ServiceNow admins and also by creating an access package to manage those exceptions. Next, she wants to further reduce her attack surface on her applications like ServiceNow by assigning Sarah as eligible to the application administrator role scoped down to the ServiceNow application. First, she'll navigate to the Privileged Identity Management Blades in the Azure portal and select the Roles tab. From there, she'll go to the Application Administrator role. Here, she'll add an assignment. Now she'll select the scope type to be Service Principal, and then search and select the ServiceNow application as the scope for the role assignment. This means Sarah can only use the application admin role on the ServiceNow app, no other apps. Next, she'll pick Sarah as the user assigned to the role. Now, Nitika needs to decide on what type of assignment she wants this to be. In this case, it'll be eligible so that Sarah still needs to activate the role in order to use it. She could also make this assignment time-bound so that it would expire or need to be extended if she needs it past a certain amount of time. Awesome, so now Sarah has the application admin role, but only just in time and scope to the application she's in charge of. But Nitika wants to add an additional security check on the role activation, and she's going to use the authentication context to do that. She's going to navigate to the conditional access blades again in the Azure portal and set up her policy. After naming the policy, she's going to go to the Cloud Apps and User Actions section. She'll pick the authentication context from the dropdown, and then she'll choose which context she wants to use to link this conditional access policy to the PIM role settings for activation. In this case, she's going to choose level 1. She will then select the condition on medium risk and add a control to require multi-factor authentication. She'll now go back to the Application Administrator role blade in the Privileged Identity Management, and she'll click on the Settings and then Edit. Here she'll make the decision on what she wants to require for a user to activate the role. In this case, it's going to be a conditional access policy. She'll then choose from the dropdown that same level 1 authentication context she has associated with the conditional access policy. And that's it. Now when Sarah goes to activate her application admin role to make changes to the ServiceNow application, it'll trigger an MFA if she's deemed medium risk by our Identity Protection User Risk Score. Okay, so now with all of these controls in place, Woodgrove was able to reduce its attack surface by following some of our winning strategies. This included reducing standing admin access for sensitive actions related to applications, deploying conditional access, and performing lifecycle management on that access. I'll now pass it back to Rohini to talk about the next winning strategy.
Thanks, Caroline. Let's dive into automating your threat response. Azure AD Identity Protection uses machine learning to detect threats in real time. As attacks evolve and attackers get more sophisticated, identity protection is continuously evolving to keep your users secure. With risk-based policies, you can automate the response to these threats. Woodgrove Bank IT is unable to keep up with the high demand as the entire company is working from home. To efficiently manage their environment and reduce the time to respond to threats, Woodgrove Bank wants to automate threat response. Nitika, the IT admin at Woodgrove, discovers the alerts produced via identity protection. Then she automates the threat response by enabling a user risk policy to require secure password change. Here we see that Nitika just received an email from Identity Protection about Woodgrove users at risk. She goes to the Identity Protection dashboard and clicks on Users at Risk. For prioritization, she wants to filter the list to high risk level. But even after filtering, the list is still too long and it will take some time to review each user and reset their password. Instead of manually remediating each account, Nitika wants to automate the remediation. So from here, she'll go to Conditional Access to configure a policy that will automate this entire process for her. Nitika quickly creates a user risk policy and will enable this policy for all users and all apps. Under Conditions, she will apply the policy to high-risk user risk. Under Controls, she will select Require Password Change. Now, after enabling the policy, all high-risk users will be prompted for a password change the next time they sign in. Here is the secret sauce. Require MFA or block risky sign-ins in your environment. Require secure password change or block any high-risk users.
So Rohini just showed you how to automate your threat response using some of our capabilities. In this next section, we're going to show you how to leverage the rich analytics that we offer to better monitor and secure your environment. There's a ton of rich, actionable insights available to you in Azure AD, some of which we've already shown you earlier, like that identity protection delivers insights such as risky users, sign-ins, and impossible travel. It also integrates across Microsoft products like Microsoft Cloud App Security. Another source of insights is privileged identity management, which delivers alerts such as inactive admins in your tenant or admins that don't have safety controls like MFA turned on. And then there's Workbook Analytics, which is a customizable analytics platform that delivers a whole host of insights related to conditional access, legacy authentication, access package activity, and much more. Over the next few minutes, we're going to show you how Nitika, Woodgrove's favorite IT admin, takes advantage of the analytics that are available natively in Azure AD. We're going to show you how she monitors alerts from privileged identity management about a role assignment behavior, and how she derives further insights from conditional access insights and workbooks. Let's get into it. So first, Nitika notices an email telling her that someone assigned a global admin role outside of privileged identity management, which is odd since role assignments should be made through PIM according to Woodgrove policy. She clicks on the email and navigates to the alerts section in PIM. Here she sees that 20 such roles have been assigned outside of PIM. She can click into this to see what these assignments are and remove the assignments if they're not necessary. She also sees an alert that 23 roles don't require MFA. Another one that 82 admins aren't even using their admin privileges. And finally, there's 139 global admins in the tenant, which seems extremely high. She can use all this information to set up access reviews to certify that all these users still need their roles, or add additional controls on activation like MFA or the new conditional access authentication context. She then navigates to Discovery and Insights. Here she sees that there are 7 service principals assigned to privileged roles. Knowing that service principals are an increasing threat vector that can often go unchecked and be exploited by malicious actors, she wants to investigate this further. She clicks on the Review Service Principals, and here she can see a list of service principals by role. She notices that 5 service principals are assigned to the application administrator role. She can then further click through and remove these assignments if they don't seem appropriate. Finally, Nitika is curious to see how effective the conditional access policies she has set up are. So she navigates to the Insights and Reporting blade in conditional access. Here she can filter her view in many ways. She could select one or all CA policies, specify a time range, scope it down to specific users, and even target certain applications. Nitika wants to perform a gap analysis on her CA policies. She wants to know of all the sign-ins that have happened in the last 7 days, how many were not protected by a conditional access policy. She sees that there were over 5,000 sign-ins where a CA policy didn't apply. She can further drill into that data to see that almost all of these sign-ins were from unmanaged devices. Since she's already starting to roll out her unmanaged device policy, this should help. And she also notices that 336 sign-ins had medium risk associated with it, and that these sign-ins were from many different locations in the world. She can even see what applications these users were accessing. She can also drill into who they are and see their sign-in activity. She can use all this information to craft a new conditional access policy or edit an existing one to cover these gaps. Lastly, she wants to learn more about analytics-driven workbooks, so she's going to navigate to the Workbooks experience under Azure AD. Here she sees several pre-built workbooks available to her. These range from sign-in activity to access package activity. She can easily click into these templates to get started. So everything we just talked about is available for you to explore today. At a minimum, you should make sure you pay attention to the emails we send, periodically monitor all the alerts and insights we provide in Azure AD, and use APIs to integrate with your Steam solutions to create your own custom reporting and alerting. Now I'll pass it back to Rohini.
Thanks, Caroline. The last winning strategy is to empower your end users. In this section, we will highlight a couple of self-service capabilities in identity, security, and governance. With My Sign-ins, end users can review their own sign-in activity. Within each sign-in activity, end users can report any suspicious sign-ins by saying, "This looks unfamiliar," or "This wasn't me." Users can further self-remediate their account if they report a suspicious sign-in. With access reviews, IT can simply delegate reviewing access to resources like teams, groups, apps, and roles to either the user themselves or a set of reviewers. These reviews can be scheduled periodically, and any denied users can be automatically removed from the resource. We also have a new public preview feature that makes it easy to set up access reviews on all Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 groups with guest users. This will generate an access review on all teams and groups that have guests in them. And as new teams and groups are created, access reviews will automatically be enabled for those that have guest users in them. With the remote work, it's been a challenge for IT and help desk teams to keep up with the demand from their users. Woodgrove Bank IT is looking to empower their users and business teams to do more to help the IT scale and their users be productive while the company is secure. First off, Nithika runs a campaign to drive awareness for the My Sign-ins page and the ability for users to self-report suspicious sign-ins. Next, Nithika sets up access reviews for all of her teams and M365 groups with guest users. Without further ado, let's show you how Nithika at Woodgrove IT is leveraging these capabilities to drive self-service. Sarah has received an email from IT about the My Sign-ins page. She is curious and goes to the page immediately. Within My Sign-ins, she can review the recent sign-in activity, which is mostly her signing in from Seattle area from her Windows laptop. But as she scrolls down, she comes across this sign-in from France. She hasn't traveled in months. She clicks on the sign-in for more info and reports it as unfamiliar. She is prompted to review her security info, and next, the status is updated to show that the sign-in is unsafe. Now back to Nithika from IT. She is happy to see the positive response from end users to the My Sign-ins page campaign. With an increase in external collaboration, Nithika wants the access reviews to ensure that access to sensitive resources that is no longer needed by her guest users is cleaned up regularly. First, Nithika will navigate to the Identity Governance blades and click to create a new access review. She first selects that she wants to review, in this case, teams and groups, followed by all Microsoft 365 groups with guest users. Next, she'll select the reviewers. Nithika will opt for users to review their own access on a quarterly basis. Under Settings, Nithika has the option to further configure this access review. She will stick with the default options, but she could automatically remove access if the guest users don't respond. To wrap it up, Nithika gives the access review a name and description. That's it. She can start these access reviews, and guest users who belong to these groups will get an email asking them to review their access. Here you go. These winning strategies are a win-win for both you and your users. In addition to My Sign-ins and access reviews, you can empower your end users with self-service password reset, group and admin access, and create access packages by entitlement management. To wrap up this session, here is the recap of the winning strategies for identity, security, and governance. Caroline and I walked you through some examples for how to achieve each of them. We recommend reading the document at aka.ms/security steps to go through the exhaustive list of how to achieve these winning strategies. Thank you for watching this session.